Every year, tens of thousands of people voluntarily pay, like thousands of dollars, to have their faces just methodically and intentionally burned off.
Yeah, it sounds completely insane when you put it like that.
Right. I mean, no, this isn't some sort of medieval torture chamber. It's actually the world of cosmetic dermatology.
Okay, exactly.
You walk into a medical clinic, which is, an environment usually dedicated to fixing things that are broken, and instead,
You pay a professional to hurt you.
yes, you pay them to inflict this calculated, precision-controlled wound across your entire face.
It really, it completely flips our standard understanding of medicine.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so conditioned to think of healthcare as restorative.
Right, like you get a cut, you get stitches.
Exactly. You get an infection, you take antibiotics. But in this specific realm, the trauma isn't the problem.
The trauma is the product.
The trauma is the product, yes.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive into the surprisingly intense, scientifically fascinating world of laser skin resurfacing.
It's a wild ride.
It really is. And our mission today is to, shortcut you past all the glossy marketing hype and the social media before and after photos.
Which are everywhere, by the way.
Oh, everywhere. We are getting into the gritty biological reality of what actually happens to your cells when you purposefully damage your face to make it look younger.
Because the disconnect is staggering. Patients sit in the chair expecting, a glowing complexion, tighter skin, erased wrinkles.
Like it's just a magic wand.
Right. But very few of them fully comprehend the intense biological cascade they're triggering. I mean, they are signing up for a massive metabolic undertaking.
And to guide us through exactly what that undertaking looks like, we're pulling from a really dynamic stack of sources today.
Some great material.
Yeah, we've got a comprehensive safety and medical guide from Live Hospital, a gritty, day-by-day clinical recovery manual from Aesthetics, and an incredibly detailed informational leaflet index from the British Association of Dermatologists.
Very thorough.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Before we even touch on the recovery or, the aesthetic results, we really have to look at the physics of the weapon being used here.
Yeah, because we aren't just shining a really hot flashlight at your face.
Right, far from it.
The underlying principle here is it's a concept called selective photothermolysis.
Selective photothermolysis.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like a mouthful.
It really does.
But the translation is actually quite elegant. It basically means using a highly specific wavelength of light to hunt down and destroy one specific target in the tissue.
Okay.
While completely ignoring the structures right next to it.
Oh, I see. So it's actively seeking out a specific material to interact with based on that specific wavelength.
Exactly. So let's look at the heavy hitter of this industry,
Yeah.
the CO2 laser.
Okay.
It fires at a wavelength of 10,600 nanometers.
That's very specific.
It is. And the reason that specific number matters is because laser energy at 10,600 nanometers is intensely attracted to and absorbed by water molecules.
Okay, and human skin is...
Predominantly made of water.
Right.
So when that beam hits your face, the water inside those targeted cells absorbs the energy and just instantly boils.
Wow. So the water boils so fast that the cell itself essentially just detonates, like it vaporizes.
The clinical term is ablation.
Ablation.
You're physically vaporizing the damaged outermost layers of your skin.
Right.
But the vaporization is actually only half the story here.
Really?
Yeah. As that cell explodes, the laser is also driving a massive shockwave of intense thermal energy down into the deeper dermal layers.
Oh, wow.
And that residual heat is the true catalyst for the entire procedure.
Because that heat acts like a biological alarm bell, right?
Exactly.
I was reading through the Aesthetics clinical guide, and it maps out this incredible wound healing cascade.
That's fascinating.
It is. First, you get massive inflammation, then proliferation, where your body scrambles to build new tissue, and finally, remodeling.
And the star players in that cascade are your fibroblasts.
The cellular factories?
Right. Think of fibroblasts as these little factories buried deep in your skin that manufacture collagen and elastin.
The proteins that keep everything, tight and bouncy?
Precisely. And as we age, those factories slow down, they get a bit lazy.
Sure.
So the thermal shockwave from the laser basically sets the factory floor on fire, forcing them into a state of absolute overdrive to repair the damage.
That makes me think of a controlled forest burn.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, forest rangers will deliberately go in and set massive fires to burn away dead brush and dying trees.
Right.
And if you walk through it the next day, it looks like a disaster. It's just scorched earth.
Totally.
But that purposeful destruction is the exact biological mechanism required to clear out the canopy, release nutrients into the soil, and just force incredibly dense, healthy new growth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is why understanding the science is so crucial before you let anyone near your face with a laser.
Yeah.
The aesthetic magic, that youthful glow everyone wants. It does not come from the machine.
Wow.
The machine just clears the brush. The actual results come entirely from your own immune system working overtime to fix the trauma.
So the laser is just the trigger.
Exactly. If your immune system is compromised, or if you interrupt that healing process, you get nothing.
Man. So if the entire goal is just to antagonize the immune system into action, I guess the logical question for anyone listening and considering this is, well, how deep of a wound we actually need to create?
That is the question.
Because looking at the options and the sources, there is a massive spectrum of aggression here.
Yeah, you're basically choosing your level of demolition. The technology falls into three main categories. You've got full ablative, non-ablative, and fractional.
Okay, let's start with the most aggressive option, full ablative lasers.
Right.
The sources mention CO2 and erbium-YD lasers in this category, but before we get to the effects, what on earth does YD stand for? It sounds like, I don't know, alien technology.
It really does. It's an acronym for yttrium aluminum garnet.
Yttrium aluminum garnet.
Okay. Yeah, it refers to the specific synthetic crystal used inside the machine to focus and amplify the light beam.
Ah, got it.
So both the CO2 and the erbium YG are ablative, meaning they completely obliterate the entire top layer of your skin, the epidermis,
Just gone.
on. And because you're stripping the surface entirely bare, you get dramatic structural results.
Right, so this is for the heavy stuff.
Exactly. It can level out severe acne craters and deep set-in wrinkles, but the cost is 2 to 3 weeks of brutal downtime.
Because you are essentially an open wound.
You are. It's intense.
Then, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you have non-ablative lasers, like the NYAG. The sources describe this approach as renovation without demolition.
That's a great way to phrase it, actually.
Yeah.
Non-ablative lasers use a different wavelength that performs an optical bypass.
What does that mean?
The light passes harmlessly right through the top layer of your skin without breaking the surface at all.
Oh, wow.
It only heats up the deeper dermis.
Oh.
So you stimulate the fibroblasts to make collagen, but because the epidermis is perfectly intact, your downtime is almost zero.
That sounds ideal.
You might look a little flushed for an afternoon, but that's it.
So, hearing that, I have to ask on behalf of the listener, if I can get collagen production without vaporizing my face and I can go to work the next morning, why would anyone ever subject themselves to the bloody, painful, ablative option?
It's a totally fair question. It comes down to the physical limitations of heat alone.
Okay.
Non-ablative lasers are fantastic for subtle tightening and a general glow, but they usually require 4 to 6 separate sessions to see a real difference.
Oh, so it's a slow process.
Very slow.
Yeah.
And, more importantly, heating the tissue underneath cannot physically reconstruct a severely irregular surface. If you have a deep boxcar acne scar, stimulating collagen underneath it will not magically resurface the top.
Right, right. You can't just fix a cracked foundation by putting a space heater in the basement. You
Exactly.
have to actually tear up the floorboards.
You have to physically sand down the surrounding tissue to level the playing field, which requires ablation.
Okay, that makes sense.
But thankfully, we now have a middle ground, which is fractional technology.
The fractional lasers.
Right. Instead of vaporizing a 100% solid sheet of skin, a fractional laser divides the beam into thousands of microscopic pins.
Oh, this makes perfect sense. It's just like aerating a lawn in the spring.
Okay, tell me more.
Like you punch thousands of tiny, deep holes into the dirt so water and nutrients can get down to the roots, right?
Yes.
But you leave the actual blades of grass around those holes completely untouched, so the lawn doesn't die. It just gets stimulated.
That is the perfect analogy. The Ex-Aesthetics Guide refers to those untouched areas as reservoirs of healthy cells.
Reservoirs.
Yeah, because you have healthy, undamaged skin sitting literally a fraction of a millimeter away from every single microscopic wound.
Oh, wow.
And those healthy cells rush over and close the gaps incredibly fast.
So you get the best of both worlds.
Exactly. You get the deep remodeling of an ablative laser, but your recovery time is slashed from 3 weeks down to maybe 7 to 10 days.
That is a huge difference. But the choice between ablative, non-ablative, and fractional isn't just a lifestyle choice about, like, how much vacation time you have,
That's
right?
all.
Because the sources emphasize that your actual skin tone dictates what technology is safe to use.
This is where understanding your biology is absolutely critical. We have to talk about
The
melanocytes.
pigment cells.
Right. The cells in your skin that produce melanin. Think of melanin as millions of microscopic umbrellas that your cells open up to protect their DNA from radiation and trauma.
Okay.
In individuals with darker skin tones, which dermatologists classify as Fitzpatrick types 4 through 6, those melanocytes are highly active.
And incredibly responsive.
Yes.
So if you hit them with the massive, unmitigated heat of a full ablative CO2 laser,
They panic.
they just freak out.
They interpret that massive thermal trauma as an extreme threat and immediately deploy all their umbrellas at once.
Oh.
They flood the area with melanin, which leads to severe and often permanent hyperpigmentation.
Meaning your face ends up entirely mottled and discolored.
Right. So for darker skin types, utilizing non-ablative lasers or fractional erbium lasers, which vaporize tissue with far less residual heat spreading to the sides, is basically non-negotiable for safety.
Wow. So, okay, you do the consultation, you pick the right laser for your biology, and the doctor does the procedure.
Yep.
When the machine shuts off, you might think, great, I'm done. But as we established, the laser just rang the alarm bell.
The real work hasn't even started.
Right. We're moving from the clinic to your living room. The actual biological work is just beginning, and the margin for human error during this recovery phase is basically zero.
You're stepping into a true marathon.
Yeah.
Let's look at the day-by-day reality of a fractional CO2 recovery.
Okay.
Days 0 to 3 are dominated by the inflammatory response.
And the clinical guides are very blunt about this phase. You are dealing with intense, radiating heat from your face, massive swelling to the point where your eyes might actually swell shut.
It happens.
And your skin constantly weeps this clear or golden fluid called serum.
Visually, it is alarming.
It sounds terrifying.
Psychologically, it's exhausting.
Uh,
But biologically, it is a masterpiece.
Really, the weeping fluid.
Yes. That weeping serum is your body dilating its blood vessels to maximum capacity. It's flooding the impact zone with white blood cells to fight potential infection.
Oh, wow.
And it's dropping off platelets filled with growth factors to jumpstart the rebuilding process.
Yeah.
Your face is weeping because it is intensely alive.
That completely changes how you look at it. And as we move into days 3 to 10, that weeping slows down and the golden serum begins to dry into these tight, honey-colored crusts across your entire face.
Right.
And underneath those crusts, your body's doing something incredibly delicate. It is generating a brand new epidermis, but it's starting out just one single cell thick.
It is the most vulnerable tissue your body can possibly produce.
Right.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of post-treatment care, specifically the concept of moist wound healing.
Okay, this was the biggest surprise to me when reading the materials.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it completely contradicts basic human intuition.
It does.
When I scrape my arm, the conventional wisdom is to let it breathe, let it dry out and let a hard scab form.
Sure.
But the Ex-Aesthetics Guide explicitly says letting your laser-treated face dry out is an absolute disaster.
Letting it dry out will ruin the entire procedure.
Why?
Here is the biology of why. The new skin cells, called keratinocytes, are the builders.
Okay.
They have to physically migrate across the surface of your face to close all those microscopic wounds.
Right.
But a keratinocyte cannot travel over a dry, hard, crusty surface. It hits a dry scab and stops dead in its tracks.
I was picturing those new skin cells like a delicate amphibian, like a tiny frog.
A frog. Okay, I'm tracking.
Yeah. If a frog dries out in the sun, it dies. It has to stay moist to survive and move around. For those 2 weeks, your face is essentially a terrarium.
It is exactly like a terrarium.
Seriously.
Those builder cells need a moist track to slide across. If you let the crusts dry and crack, not only do the builders stop working, but you create physical fissures that invite bacteria straight into your bloodstream.
Oh my gosh.
This is why patients are instructed to keep their face heavily slathered in prescribed thick petroleum-based ointments 24 hours a day.
So it's not just for comfort. The ointment is a physical and chemical necessity.
Precisely. Petroleum jelly is highly occlusive. because you have burned off your stratum corneum, your body's natural moisture barrier. The ointment acts as a surrogate barrier.
It traps the moisture.
Right. It traps your body's internal water from evaporating, creating the perfect humid greenhouse environment for those keratinocytes to glide across and reconstruct the surface.
Okay, so by around day 10, those crusts naturally slow off, and you have this very pink, very smooth new skin.
Beautiful new skin.
But you aren't actually finished. The X-Aesthetics Guide highlights months 3 through 6 as the invisible phase.
The surface might look healed, but the deepest, most important work is just getting started in the dermis.
Okay.
This is where collagen cross-linking happens.
How does that actually tighten the skin, though? What is cross-linking doing mechanically?
Think of the new collagen your fibroblasts just produced, like the metal poles of a construction scaffolding.
Okay.
Initially, they're just loosely piled up. Cross-linking is the biological process where your body starts welding those individual poles together, forming a rigid interlocking matrix.
Oh, I see.
As that matrix connects and tightens, it physically pulls the overlying skin taut from the inside out.
Which explains the massive psychological toll I read about on patient forums.
Oh, the forums are intense.
Right. People hit month 2, their face is still slightly pink, the swelling has gone down, but the cross-linking hasn't finished welding yet.
Exactly.
So they look in the mirror and think, I just spent $4,000 in 2 weeks looking like a monster, and it didn't even work.
It's devastating for them.
They have to endure a mental marathon of trusting a microscopic welding process they can't even see.
It requires extreme patience and, more importantly, extreme protection.
Yes.
Because your primary defense barrier is gone and that delicate scaffolding is still setting up, the saboteurs can easily derail months of progress.
The sources outline a terrifying list of saboteurs.
They do.
The ultimate enemy, universally, is sun exposure. Even a 5-minute walk to your mailbox without a wide-brimmed hat is strictly forbidden.
Because, as we discussed with the melanocytes, your new skin has almost zero melanin umbrellas set up yet.
They're defenseless.
Completely.
Yeah.
If UV rays hit those vulnerable single-cell thick layers, the body panics and triggers post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, or PIH.
Right.
And if you trigger PIH during this highly reactive state, it can take 6 to 18 months for those dark blotches to fade.
18 months of damage for 5 minutes of sun.
It's just not worth it.
But it's not just UV light. Even ambient heat is a major saboteur.
Oh, absolutely. Heat triggers vasodilation. Yeah. When your body gets hot, it expands the blood vessels near the surface of the skin to vent that heat.
Right.
If you engage in intense exercise, or even just stand over a hot stove while cooking, or, open a 400-degree oven.
Oh, wow. Just cooking dinner.
Yeah. That blast of thermal radiation causes the fragile new blood vessels in your face to instantly engorge. It massively prolongs your swelling, increases your redness, and ramps up the inflammation.
That's wild. And then we have to talk about smoking.
Smoking is an absolute deal breaker for laser resurfacing.
Because of the nicotine.
Yes. Nicotine is a potent vasoconstrictor. It literally clamps down and chokes off the microcirculation in your tissue.
Wow.
Remember those fibroblasts acting as the cellular factories?
Yeah.
They require massive amounts of oxygen and raw nutrients delivered via your bloodstream to manufacture that collagen scaffolding.
So by smoking, you are entirely cutting off the supply chain to the very factories you just paid thousands of dollars to stimulate.
You double your healing time and drastically increase the risk of tissue necrosis.
Necrosis?
Where the skin literally dies because it's starving for oxygen.
Man. Because your margin for error is gone, if you don't manage this environment perfectly, you become one of the statistics the Live Hospital Safety Guide warns about.
Right, the complication rates.
Yeah, they note minor side effects like temporary pain or prolonged redness happen in about 20 to 30% of cases. But the severe complications are real. Burns in 1 to 4%, scarring in 1 to 2%.
We also must highlight the ocular risks.
The eyes, yes.
Laser light can bounce. If strict eye safety protocols aren't followed, specifically using non-reflective metal eye shields placed directly over the patient's eyes.
It's terrifying.
An errant pulse of a CO2 laser can easily penetrate the eyelid and cause irreversible retinal damage or cataracts in a fraction of a second.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting to me. Avoiding so many of these post-treatment complications actually comes down to fighting your own basic human psychology.
Oh, the psychology is the hardest part.
Right. During those first 2 weeks, your face is pouring out histamines. It is itching incredibly intensely.
Unbearably.
It feels tight. The temptation to reach up and pick off one of those dry crusts is absolutely overwhelming.
Mechanical trauma, like picking, scratching, or harshly washing the face, is the single most common self-inflicted complication.
Wow.
If you rip off a crust before the keratinocytes have finished building the skin underneath, you rip a hole straight into the dermis and guarantee a permanent scar.
You essentially have to treat your own face the way you would treat a literal newborn baby.
That's a great rule of thumb.
You would never put a newborn in direct sunlight, you wouldn't scrub it with harsh chemicals, and you definitely wouldn't pick at its skin.
This raises an important question, though.
Okay.
You can have the discipline of a monk during your home recovery, but if the biological foundation was wrong to begin with, you're still in trouble.
Right.
This is why choosing a board-certified provider who intensely screens your medical history is non-negotiable.
Because if this whole procedure relies entirely on the immune system, I imagine anyone with an autoimmune disorder or diabetes, which compromises blood flow, is playing with fire here.
Absolutely, playing with fire. A responsible doctor is looking for systemic red flags. For example, if you have a history of the herpes simplex virus, even just occasional cold sores,
Oh, wow.
putting a laser to your face will trigger a massive, uncontrolled viral outbreak across your entire face due to the trauma.
Just from the stress of the procedure.
Yes, you have to be placed on heavy preventative antivirals before the laser ever powers on.
Which is why the British Association of Dermatologists' source is so valuable.
Such a great resource.
They maintain this massive index of QR codes linking directly to patient information leaflets. A good doctor will use those resources to make sure you fully understand how your specific underlying biology, whether it's eczema, your Fitzpatrick skin type, or your immune status, will react to this trauma.
Because the financial and emotional cost of managing a severe complication is always infinitely higher than the cost of doing it right the first time.
And we should put some actual numbers to that cost.
Let's do it.
This isn't an over-the-counter serum. A single session of full ablative CO2 laser resurfacing can run anywhere from $2,500 to well over $5,000.
And that's just for one session.
Right. Fractional treatments range from $1,500 to $3,500 per session, and you might need several of them.
It is a massive financial investment layered on top of a significant investment of your time and, a heavy psychological toll during the recovery.
So what does this all mean when we put the pieces together?
Yeah.
Laser skin resurfacing isn't a spa day.
Not at all.
It is a highly engineered partnership between cutting-edge physics and the ancient evolutionary brilliance of the human immune system.
Well said.
You are using a specific wavelength of light to hunt down water, vaporize tissue, and trigger a biological alarm bell. Also, your own cellular factories will build you a tighter, denser scaffolding. It's expensive, it's gritty, and it requires an almost monastic level of patience.
We spend so much of our lives and our money trying to shield our bodies from damage or prevent them from aging.
We really do.
But isn't it profound that the ultimate secret to youth in modern clinical dermatology is actually just teaching the body how to heal itself from a perfectly calculated injury?
That is so true.
It really makes you wonder what other regenerative superpowers our bodies are harboring, just waiting for the exact right trigger to be unleashed.
I love that perspective. From walking into a clinic expecting a doctor to fix something that is broken, to deliberately paying them to break it just precisely enough so that you can rebuild it better yourself.
It's an amazing process.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.